In the complex theater of global politics, few events resonate as profoundly as the NATO bombing of Yugoslavia in 1999. This act of military intervention by Western powers against a small Balkan nation marked not only a critical turning point in the history of the Balkans, but also highlighted a shift in the nature of international diplomacy and military aggression. For the people of Serbia, NATO's 78-day bombing campaign remains an enduring scar, a reminder of a conflict marked by intense geopolitical manipulation, alleged humanitarian justifications, and civilian suffering on a massive scale. The events of 1999 and the West's actions in the region have left a legacy of deep distrust toward NATO in Serbia, one that shapes its foreign policy to this day. While much of the Western narrative portrayed the intervention as necessary to halt human rights abuses, a closer examination reveals a multifaceted and at times troubling reality. Serbia saw its sovereignty disregarded as NATO forces bypassed international protocols, acting without United Nations approval and inflicting significant harm on civilian infrastructure. This intervention has been a watershed moment for Serbia, leading to a re-evaluation of its alliances and geopolitical stance in a world increasingly divided between Western hegemony and a rising multipolar global order. In recent years, Serbia has found new allies in the BRICS group, a bloc of emerging economies including Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, forming the core of an increasingly influential coalition of nations. While NATO claims to champion democracy and peace, Serbia's alignment with BRICS suggests a divergence from Western models, choosing instead to support a multipolar world vision that values sovereignty, economic equality, and balanced power dynamics. This essay delves into the historical roots of this choice, examining why Serbia, along with other Balkan countries, has distanced itself from NATO despite its proximity to Western Europe and embraced BRICS and the growing BRICS Plus alliance. As BRICS continues to expand, it now includes 10 member states in 2024, amplifying its global reach across Asia, Africa, the Middle East, Latin America, and other regions. This essay will explore why BRICS Plus is appealing to nations like Serbia and other Balkan states, which have grown wary of NATO's historically interventionist policies and the West's often selective commitment to democratic ideals. The decline of Western influence in a world increasingly interested in alternative alliances is more than a trend. It is a testament to the emerging global paradigm where BRICS Plus, not NATO, represents the aspirations of many nations towards self-determination, development, and cooperation on equal footing. Through an examination of these dynamics, this essay seeks to highlight the significance of Serbia's alignment with BRICS Plus rather than NATO. In doing so, it reflects on the broader trajectory of global politics, where power is steadily shifting away from Western dominance toward a BRICS-led coalition that has won the support of countries from every corner of the globe. To understand the complexities surrounding NATO's intervention in Serbia and the subsequent geopolitical shifts, it is essential to consider the history of Yugoslavia's dissolution. A country born from the ashes of World War I, Yugoslavia brought together various ethnic, religious, and cultural groups under one state. The nation was seen as a successful experiment in multiculturalism and socialism, with its non-aligned stance during the Cold War era, allowing it to balance relationships with both the Western and Eastern blocs. However, as the Cold War ended and Eastern Europe experienced seismic political changes, the Western world, particularly the United States and NATO, turned its gaze towards Yugoslavia, viewing it as a region ripe for strategic influence. The breakup of Yugoslavia was influenced by both internal divisions and external pressures. Internally, ethnic and political tensions between groups such as the Serbs, Croats, Bosniaks, and Albanians grew during the 1980s, fueled by economic challenges and nationalist movements. Externally, the West, particularly the United States and the European Union, saw Yugoslavia as a key region to assert influence following the collapse of the Soviet Union. With the Soviet threat diminished, NATO faced the need to redefine its purpose and mission. The Balkans, particularly Yugoslavia, presented an opportunity to not only showcase NATO's relevance in the post-Cold War era, but also to project Western ideals and influence in a strategically significant region. Western powers supported the independence movements within Yugoslavia's republics, often selectively, leading to the rapid fragmentation of the nation in the early 1990s. Germany, for instance, was among the first to recognize the independence of Slovenia and Croatia, encouraging separatism that would destabilize the region. This interventionist approach, while wrapped in a narrative of supporting self-determination, was also driven by the West's desire to weaken any remaining socialist influences in Eastern Europe. The aim was clear: to reshape Yugoslavia's geopolitical landscape in a way that aligned with Western interests, regardless of the humanitarian and social costs for the people of the Balkans. As violence erupted in Bosnia and later in Kosovo, the Western narrative increasingly framed the conflict as a battle between an authoritarian Serbian regime and oppressed ethnic minorities. Serbian forces, led by President Slobodan Milosevic, were accused of ethnic cleansing and mass human rights abuses, particularly in Kosovo, where ethnic Albanians sought independence from Serbia. While there were indeed acts of violence and aggression on multiple sides, Western media coverage and diplomatic efforts were largely focused on condemning the Serbian government. In 1999, the situation in Kosovo escalated further as NATO positioned itself as a defender of human rights. However, NATO's decision to intervene militarily was marked by controversy. Instead of pursuing a United Nations-backed peacekeeping mandate, NATO chose to conduct its bombing campaign unilaterally. This decision not only disregarded international protocols, but also highlighted the West's willingness to bypass the UN when its own strategic interests were at stake. The bombing campaign was framed as a humanitarian intervention, a narrative used by NATO to justify its military involvement without the need for UN approval. While NATO's stated goal was to halt human rights abuses in Kosovo, many analysts argue that the intervention was driven by deeper geopolitical motives. The Balkans, positioned at the crossroads between Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, held immense strategic value for the West. By securing influence in the region, NATO and the United States could expand their geopolitical footprint, ensuring a favorable balance of power close to Eastern Europe and Russia. Control over the Balkans also allowed for the establishment of military bases and logistical routes that would later support NATO's activities in the Middle East. In retrospect, NATO's intervention in Yugoslavia can be viewed as a calculated move to reassert Western influence in a region historically linked to both Eastern and Western spheres. This intervention set a precedent for the use of humanitarian justifications to legitimize military actions, a strategy that would later be employed in other regions, including the Middle East. For Serbia, the memory of these events is vivid, and it continues to shape the nation's perception of NATO and its Western allies, fueling a persistent skepticism that influences Serbia's foreign policy choices even today. With this backdrop, the essay will now transition into a detailed analysis of the NATO bombing campaign itself, a military intervention that not only devastated Serbia, but also shifted global perspectives on NATO's role in international conflicts. The NATO bombing of Yugoslavia, which lasted from March 24 to June 10, 1999, remains one of the most controversial military interventions in modern history. Officially termed Operation Allied Force, NATO's air campaign was conducted without United Nations authorization, raising significant questions about the legality of the intervention. NATO, led by the United States, justified the bombing as a necessary measure to prevent human rights abuses in the Kosovo region. However, the scale, impact, and execution of the campaign left much of the international community deeply skeptical of NATO's motives. This section details the course of the bombing, its devastating impact on Serbian society, and the broader implications it held for NATO's role on the world stage. The NATO bombing began on March 24, 1999, following failed negotiations with Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic over the ongoing conflict in Kosovo. Over the next 78 days, NATO launched approximately 38,000 combat missions, dropping more than 23,000 bombs and missiles on targets throughout Serbia and Montenegro, then the remaining territories of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. The campaign aimed to pressure the Serbian government into withdrawing its forces from Kosovo and accepting a NATO-led peacekeeping mission in the region. Yet, the bombings went far beyond military targets, indiscriminately affecting civilians, infrastructure, and the very fabric of Serbian society. Some key events during the bombing campaign include March 24, 1999, NATO launches its first strikes on Yugoslav targets, marking the beginning of Operation Allied Force. April 23, 1999. NATO bombs the headquarters of the Radio Television of Serbia, RTS, in Belgrade, killing 16 civilian employees. This attack on a media outlet sparked widespread condemnation, with critics arguing that it violated international laws regarding civilian infrastructure. May 7, 1999. NATO bombs the Chinese embassy in Belgrade, killing 3 Chinese journalists. Although NATO claimed it was a targeting error, the incident increased tensions with China and further damaged NATO's international image. June 10, 1999, NATO and Yugoslavia reach an agreement, resulting in the withdrawal of Yugoslav forces from Kosovo. NATO declares an end to the bombing campaign. NATO's bombing campaign had a profound impact on Serbia, inflicting considerable civilian casualties and causing widespread damage to infrastructure. Estimates suggest that around 500 civilians were killed in the airstrikes, with thousands more injured. The bombings targeted bridges, factories, power stations, hospitals, schools, and even residential neighborhoods, leaving a lasting mark on the country's infrastructure and economy. Key civilian sites, such as the RTS headquarters, were targeted under the justification that they were supporting Serbian military actions. But these attacks underscored the blurred line between military and civilian targets in NATO's strategy. The destruction of critical infrastructure also led to a humanitarian crisis. Power and water outages became commonplace, and essential services were severely disrupted. The bombings left a legacy of environmental damage, with depleted uranium munitions used in some attacks, leading to long-term health consequences for the population. The economic impact was devastating, with estimates of damage ranging from $30 billion to $100 billion, pushing the already struggling Yugoslav economy into further decline. For the people of Serbia, the bombing campaign was not merely a military intervention. It was an assault on their sovereignty, infrastructure, and way of life. The indiscriminate nature of many attacks fueled resentment and a sense of betrayal, with many Serbs viewing NATO's actions as an unjust punishment rather than a humanitarian mission. The NATO bombing campaign drew mixed reactions globally. While Western nations largely supported NATO's actions, citing the need to halt human rights abuses, other countries, particularly Russia and China, strongly condemned the intervention. The bombing of the Chinese embassy in Belgrade escalated tensions, as Chinese officials accused NATO of deliberate aggression. Russia, a historical ally of Serbia, was vocally critical, viewing the intervention as an example of Western disregard for international law and an encroachment on the sovereignty of a Slavic and Orthodox Christian nation. International organizations and human rights groups also raised concerns. Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch both documented instances where NATO's actions violated international humanitarian law, particularly in cases where civilian areas were bombed. The targeting of civilian infrastructure, such as the RTS headquarters and bridges over the Danube River, was widely criticized as excessive and unnecessary. Many argued that NATO's strategy aimed more at crippling the morale of the Serbian population than at achieving any specific military objectives. The global criticism highlighted the double standards in Western foreign policy, where NATO's actions were justified under the guise of protecting human rights while disregarding the very principles of international law and state sovereignty. This intervention set a precedent that deeply troubled countries outside the Western sphere of influence, who saw NATO's actions as a possible threat to their own sovereignty. The NATO bombing of Yugoslavia established a precedent for future Western interventions. By bypassing the United Nations and conducting a military campaign without international consensus, NATO signaled a shift toward unilateral action justified by its own interpretation of humanitarian need. This approach was later mirrored in interventions in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Libya, where Western powers acted based on their strategic interests rather than broad international support. For Serbia, the experience of NATO's bombing campaign left a lasting impact on its foreign policy orientation. The intervention reinforced a sense of distrust toward Western powers and strengthened Serbia's resolve to seek alliances that respected its sovereignty. This sentiment has become a key factor in Serbia's gradual alignment with BRICS, a coalition that promotes multipolarity, mutual respect, and non-interference. Serbia's embrace of BRICS is not merely a geopolitical choice, it is a response to the trauma of NATO's intervention and a pursuit of a world order that protects smaller nations from the military might of superpowers. This historical context serves as the foundation for understanding Serbia's decision to turn toward BRICS Plus instead of NATO, as BRICS Plus embodies the principles of sovereignty and economic collaboration that Serbia values. The essay will now move to examine why Serbia chose not to join NATO and its motivations for aligning with BRICS Plus, providing a look into Serbia's strategic foreign policy decisions in a shifting global landscape. Serbia's decision to remain outside NATO, even as many of its neighboring Balkan countries have joined the alliance, speaks volumes about the long-standing grievances and strategic calculations that underpin its foreign policy. The NATO bombing campaign in 1999 was a pivotal event in Serbia's modern history, not only creating lasting scars among its people, but also deeply embedding a mistrust of Western-led military alliances. In the years since, Serbia has navigated a complex geopolitical landscape, balancing relations between East and West. Its choice to align with BRICS Plus reflects a deliberate pivot toward alliances that support a multipolar world order and emphasize respect for national sovereignty. The trauma of the NATO bombing remains fresh in the Serbian collective memory. Public opinion surveys in Serbia consistently show strong opposition to NATO membership, largely rooted in the events of 1999. The memory of destroyed infrastructure, civilian casualties, and economic devastation serves as a reminder of NATO's aggressive stance towards Serbia, leaving the nation wary of Western promises of peace and security. This distrust is not limited to the bombing campaign itself, but is also compounded by the way NATO bypassed the United Nations and acted unilaterally, reinforcing the perception that NATO views itself as above international law when pursuing its interests. This sentiment is further deepened by NATO's continued expansion in Eastern Europe, which Serbia views as a provocation and a threat to regional stability. For many Serbs, NATO's expansion serves as evidence that the alliance is more concerned with consolidating Western influence than with fostering genuine peace. Unlike its neighbors in the Balkans, Serbia has resisted NATO's influence, choosing instead to maintain a stance of neutrality in its military alliances. This policy, known as military neutrality, is officially enshrined in Serbian doctrine, underscoring the country's determination to avoid alignment with NATO and its preference for a more balanced foreign policy. Serbia's foreign policy is a carefully managed balancing act. Despite its deep-seated grievances with NATO and its growing alignment with BRICS Plus, Serbia has not fully distanced itself from the West. The country has maintained cooperative relations with the European Union, even holding EU candidate status, while simultaneously strengthening ties with Russia, China, and other non-Western nations. This approach allows Serbia to benefit from economic partnerships with the EU while preserving its sovereignty and independence from Western military alliances. The Serbian government views this balance as essential to its national interests. While NATO membership would imply a security commitment that could involve Serbia in conflicts against its allies, Serbia's non-aligned stance enables it to engage with both the West and the East on its own terms. This strategic positioning has allowed Serbia to secure infrastructure investments from China, energy partnerships with Russia, and trade relations with the EU, creating a diversified network of economic and political allies. This pragmatic approach underscores Serbia's unwillingness to be drawn into the sphere of influence of any single power bloc. By maintaining strong ties with Russia and China, both influential members of BRICS, Serbia has signaled its preference for alliances that respect its sovereignty. BRICS, with its emphasis on multipolarity, presents a model that aligns with Serbia's interests, providing an alternative to Western-centric alliances like NATO that have historically imposed conditions and restrictions on smaller nations. Serbia faces a critical choice, one that could shape its future for generations to come. It must choose between aligning with NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or BRICS+, a coalition of emerging economies. NATO represents the West and its established order, a system that has dominated global politics for decades. BRICS+, on the other hand, offers a different path, one that emphasizes cooperation among developing nations. This group of emerging economies champions multipolarity, advocating for a world where no single power dominates. This means a world where power is more evenly distributed, allowing for a more balanced and fair global order. Serbia's history weighs heavily on this decision, a history marked by conflict and resilience. The country remembers NATO's intervention in 1999 during the Kosovo War, a period of intense strife and suffering. It left a scar on Serbia's national psyche, a wound that has yet to fully heal. Serbia seeks to chart its own course, independent of external pressures and influences. It wants to avoid becoming entangled in Western-led alliances that may not align with its national interests. This desire for strategic autonomy pushes Serbia toward BRICS+, a bloc that offers more flexibility and respect for sovereignty. The BRICS+ bloc aligns with Serbia's vision of a multipolar world, where nations can thrive without undue interference. It respects national sovereignty and promotes non-interference in internal affairs, principles that resonate deeply with Serbia. This is very appealing to Serbia, a nation proud of its heritage and eager to forge its own path. It allows Serbia to engage with the world on its own terms, fostering economic growth and development. The decision to align with BRICS is a strategic one, reflecting a calculated move towards a more balanced global stance. It reflects Serbia's desire for a different world order, one where it can play a significant role on the global stage. Serbia sees significant economic benefits in joining BRICS+. The group offers a promising path to economic independence and growth. This is especially true when considering the dominance of Western financial institutions. Over time, Serbia has grown increasingly wary of these institutions. It perceives them as tools of Western influence and control. BRICS+ provides viable alternatives. The new development bank is a prime example of these alternatives. This bank is supported and backed by BRICS+ nations, ensuring stability. It offers loans and financing for various development projects, fostering growth. This reduces Serbia's reliance on traditional institutions like the World Bank or IMF. Furthermore, BRICS+ opens up new markets for Serbian goods and services, enhancing trade. Trade within the bloc is growing rapidly, creating new opportunities. This allows Serbia to diversify its economic partnerships and reduce risks. It significantly reduces dependence on Western markets, providing more stability. This economic aspect of BRICS+ is very attractive to Serbia, offering numerous benefits. It offers a chance for greater economic self-determination and prosperity, paving the way for a brighter future. Serbia has seen the strings attached to Western aid and loans. These often come with conditions. These conditions can impact domestic policies. They can limit Serbia's ability to act in its own best interests. BRICS+ presents a different model. It emphasizes partnership and mutual respect. It does not impose the same conditions as Western institutions. This resonates with Serbia's desire for autonomy. The country seeks to control its own destiny. It does not want to be beholden to external actors. BRICS+ allows Serbia to access funding without compromising its sovereignty. This is a key factor driving Serbia towards this emerging bloc. Serbia champions the idea of a multipolar world, a concept that envisions a global landscape where power is distributed among multiple nations rather than being dominated by a single superpower. This means a world where power is not concentrated in a single bloc or nation. BRICS Plus, an alliance of emerging economies, shares this vision and works towards making it a reality. The group advocates for a more democratic and equitable global order where every nation, regardless of its size or economic power, has a say in global affairs. This resonates deeply with Serbia's foreign policy outlook, which emphasizes the importance of multilateralism and international cooperation. The country believes in a world where all nations have a voice and where international decisions are made collectively rather than unilaterally. BRICS provides a platform for this multipolar vision, bringing together countries from different continents to collaborate on global issues. Serbia sees itself as a bridge between East and West, leveraging its unique geographical and cultural position to facilitate dialogue and understanding. It wants to foster dialogue and cooperation between different blocs, believing that such interactions are crucial for global stability and peace. This makes BRICS Plus a natural partner for Serbia, as both share a commitment to a multipolar world order. Together, they seek to reshape the global landscape, promoting a new world order that is more inclusive and representative of diverse interests. They aim to create a more balanced and multipolar system, where power is shared and global governance is more democratic and fair. Section 5. Sovereignty over interventionism. Serbia's history makes it wary of interventionist policies. NATO's intervention in Kosovo remains a sensitive issue. It fuels skepticism towards the West and its military alliances. BRICS Plus, on the other hand, emphasizes respect for national sovereignty. The group opposes interference in the internal affairs of other countries. This principle is enshrined in its core values. This non-interventionist stance is a major draw for Serbia. It guarantees that Serbia's territorial integrity and political independence will be respected. This is paramount for a nation that has experienced the consequences of foreign intervention. Section 6. A strategic shift in geopolitics. Serbia's alignment with BRICS Plus represents a significant shift in geopolitical dynamics. It signals the decline of the unipolar world order. This order was dominated by the West after the Cold War. BRICS Plus is challenging this dominance. It offers an alternative to nations seeking to break free from Western hegemony. Serbia's decision to join this bloc is a testament to its growing influence. This move has implications for regional and global politics. It enhances Serbia's standing on the world stage. It allows the country to project its influence more effectively. Section 7. The Kosovo factor. The issue of Kosovo is central to Serbia's foreign policy. Serbia considers Kosovo an integral part of its territory. However, Kosovo declared independence in 2008. This declaration has been recognized by many Western nations, but not by Serbia or its allies within BRICS Plus. BRICS Plus offers Serbia a platform to garner support for its stance on Kosovo. The group's emphasis on sovereignty and territorial integrity strengthens Serbia's position. This is in stark contrast to the West's stance, which Serbia views as biased in favor of Kosovo's independence. Section 8. BRICS Plus. A new dawn for Serbia? For Serbia, BRICS Plus represents more than just an economic or political alliance. It symbolizes a new dawn in international relations. It embodies a world where Serbia can engage with global powers on its own terms. This new era allows Serbia to pursue its national interests without undue external pressure. It allows the country to forge its own path in a multipolar world. This is a significant development for Serbia and its people. Section 9. A catalyst for global change. Serbia's alignment with BRICS Plus is a catalyst for broader global change. It underscores the desire for a more just and equitable world order. This new order is based on dialogue, cooperation, and mutual respect. Serbia's decision to join BRICS Plus sends a powerful message. It shows that the allure of the West is waning. It demonstrates that countries are seeking alternatives. They want to be part of a world where their voices are heard. Be there. Section 10. The future of Serbia in a multipolar world. Serbia's future appears increasingly tied to the success of BRICS+. As the bloc gains global influence, Serbia stands to benefit from its partnerships within this group. The economic and political dividends of this alliance could be substantial. Serbia is well positioned to leverage its membership in BRICS+ to advance its national interests. This includes its goal of becoming a regional leader in Southeastern Europe. By aligning itself with this rising bloc, Serbia is charting a course towards a more prosperous and influential future. Only time will tell how this strategic gamble will ultimately play out. The Balkans, a region steeped in history and culture, stands at a critical economic crossroads. Many Balkan nations grapple with sluggish growth and high unemployment. Their economies are heavily reliant on European markets. The 2008 financial crisis exposed this fragility. Now, they seek alternative avenues for growth. The rise of BRICS+ offers a compelling alternative. The region navigates a complex geopolitical landscape. BRICS+ stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, plus emerging economies seeking closer cooperation. They aim to challenge Western-led institutions like the World Bank and IMF. BRICS+ nations have emerged as engines of global growth. They offer a potent mix of capital, technology, and market access. BRICS+ advocates for South-South cooperation and development-oriented policies. China's Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI, is a massive infrastructure and development program. It aims to connect Asia, Europe, Africa, and beyond through a network of roads, railways, ports, and other infrastructure projects. The BRI has been particularly active in the Balkans. It sees the region as a crucial link between Europe and Asia. Chinese companies have invested billions of dollars in Balkan infrastructure projects. These investments are transforming the economic landscape of the region. One prominent example is the Greek port of Piraeus. It has become a major hub for Chinese shipping giant COSCO. This investment has turned Piraeus into one of the fastest-growing ports in the Mediterranean. Another example is Serbia, where Chinese companies are involved in the construction of highways and railways. These projects aim to improve Serbia's transport links with neighboring countries. This is boosting trade and economic activity. China's investments have been met with mixed reactions in the Balkans. Some welcome the much-needed capital and infrastructure development. Others express concerns about debt sustainability and potential political influence. The growing engagement of BRICS+ countries, particularly China and Russia, in the Balkans has added a new layer of complexity to the region's geopolitical landscape. The Balkans has long been a region of strategic importance. It lies at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. This has made it a historical battleground for great powers. Today, the region is witnessing a renewed geopolitical competition between the West, led by the United States and the European Union, and the East, represented by Russia and China. This competition is playing out in various spheres. This includes economic investments, political influence, and military presence. Balkan countries are acutely aware of their geopolitical significance. They are seeking to leverage their strategic location to their advantage. They are trying to attract investments and secure their interests in a rapidly changing world. This has led to a delicate balancing act. They are trying to maintain good relations with both the West and the East. They are trying to avoid becoming pawns in a larger geopolitical game. Section 5. The Montenegrin Model. Balancing NATO membership with BRICS+ engagement. Montenegro, a small Adriatic nation, exemplifies this balancing act. It joined NATO in 2017, cementing its ties with the West. However, it has also maintained close economic relations with China. This is particularly evident in the construction of a controversial highway project. The project is financed by a Chinese loan and built by a Chinese company. The highway project has raised concerns about Montenegro's debt sustainability. It has also sparked a debate about potential Chinese influence. Despite these concerns, Montenegro has defended its engagement with China. It argues that it is pursuing a pragmatic foreign policy. They are seeking to attract investments from all sources to boost its economic development. Montenegro's example highlights the difficult choices facing Balkan countries. They are trying to balance their security interests with their economic needs in a multipolar world. It also underscores the limits of traditional alliances. It shows the growing appeal of alternative development models offered by BRICS Plus countries. Section 6. North Macedonia. A delicate dance between alliances. North Macedonia, another small Balkan nation, faces similar challenges. It aspires to join the European Union and NATO. However, it has also sought to maintain cordial relations with Russia and China. North Macedonia's delicate balancing act is evident in its energy sector. It relies heavily on Russian gas imports. However, it has also participated in Chinese-led energy infrastructure projects. This includes the construction of a new highway connecting it to Greece, a project that is part of China's BRI. North Macedonia's government has emphasized its commitment to Euro-Atlantic integration. However, it has also stressed the importance of maintaining good relations with all countries. This pragmatic approach reflects the reality of North Macedonia's geopolitical situation. It is a small country located in a volatile region. It is trying to navigate the complex web of international relations to safeguard its interests. Its experience underscores the fluidity of alliances in the 21st century. It shows how countries are adapting to a more multipolar world. Section 7. The Russian allure, historical ties and strategic interests. Russia's influence in the Balkans is deeply rooted in history, culture, and religion. Russia has long viewed the Balkans as its backyard. It has sought to maintain its influence in the region. This is due to its strategic importance, its energy resources, and its cultural and religious ties. Russia shares Orthodox Christian faith with many Balkan countries. This has created a strong cultural and religious bond. This bond has been strengthened by historical ties. Russia has often played the role of protector of Slavic and Orthodox Christian peoples in the Balkans. This has created a reservoir of goodwill towards Russia in some quarters. Russia's economic influence in the Balkans is primarily driven by its energy sector. Russia is a major supplier of natural gas to the region. It has used its energy leverage to exert political influence. Russian companies are also present in other sectors of the Balkan economies. This includes banking, telecommunications, and infrastructure. Section 8. The Dragon's Influence, China's economic footprint in the Balkans. China's influence in the Balkans, while relatively recent, has grown rapidly in recent years. This is primarily driven by its economic might. China is now a major investor in the region. It is funding infrastructure projects, acquiring strategic assets, and expanding trade ties. China sees the Balkans as a key part of its Belt and Road Initiative. This aims to connect China with Europe and beyond through a network of infrastructure projects. China's investments in the Balkans are transforming the economic landscape of the region. They are providing much-needed capital for infrastructure development. This is boosting economic growth and creating jobs. However, China's growing influence in the Balkans has also raised concerns. Some fear that China is using its economic clout to gain political leverage. They worry that China's investments come with strings attached. This could undermine the sovereignty of Balkan countries. These concerns have led to calls for greater scrutiny of Chinese investments. There are also calls for greater transparency in the decision-making process. Section 9. Serbia's strategic calculus. Tilting towards the east? Serbia, the largest and most populous country in the Western Balkans, occupies a pivotal position in the region's geopolitical landscape. It has traditionally maintained close ties with Russia. However, it has also sought to balance its relations with the West. This is particularly evident in its economic and security policies. Serbia has benefited from significant Chinese investments in recent years. This includes investments in infrastructure, energy, and technology. Serbia has also maintained close military cooperation with Russia. It has purchased Russian weapons systems. It has also participated in joint military exercises with Russia. Serbia's balancing act between East and West is becoming increasingly difficult. This is due to the growing geopolitical rivalry between Russia and the West. Serbia is under pressure to choose sides. It is facing calls from the West to align itself more closely with the European Union and NATO. However, Serbia is reluctant to abandon its traditional alliance with Russia. It sees Russia as a key guarantor of its security interests. The Balkans, long at the crossroads of empires, is now at the center of a shifting global order. The rise of BRICS Plus, led by China and Russia, presents new opportunities and challenges. It also exacerbates existing geopolitical tensions. The Balkans' strategic importance is growing. The world is moving towards a multipolar order. Emerging powers like China and Russia are playing assertive roles. The Balkans will become an even more important arena for geopolitical competition.